Welcome to this Last Mile Profits video, the last word on the last mile. Vinted Go has acquired Homerr. To find out why this is really a big deal, stay tuned. Modern Expo provides an integral ecosystem of screen-operated lockers, screenless autonomous solutions, refrigerated lockers, and even personal parcel lockers, powered by in-house developed software. Gary, today I'd like to talk about Vinted because these guys are doing a lot of really interesting things in the last mile space. And just as a kickoff, if I say to you Homerr, what does that tell you?
Simpson.
Actually, Homerr, I actually hadn't heard about these guys until a couple of years ago. And this is quite a cool company that does something, I think, a little bit too close to what Hermes used to do with the lifestyle couriers.
Yeah.
And it's a bit of a mix between that and a project that we had at Amazon, which was called I Have Space. And I think the idea is sort of lifestyle, out of home capacity, potentially delivery. I have to admit, I'll still need to look a little bit more into them to see exactly how it works. But why I mention this is, guess who's bought them?
Vinted Go.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting for a number of reasons. First reason is it shows that Vinted on the, I was going to say the expansive trail. That's not quite what I think what I want to say in English, but you know what I mean. They're really looking at developing the model. They've already done a lot of stuff in France with the parcel lockers. So, what does it tell you? I think it says these guys really have big ambitions.
Well, I think they have absolutely huge ambitions. I think they are, when you talk to them, they're radical thinkers. They want to drive the cost of delivery down, and their target is €1, maybe £1, but definitely €1. They want end-to-end transport for £1 or €1. And for most of the existing carriers, and I don't want to call them legacy carriers because some of them aren't even that old themselves, this is an impossible target. The way that they pay their drivers, the way that they are arranged and organized would never allow them to reduce their cost base to get anything like that. So I think what's happening is that this challenger, because of what the product is, very, very low cost items being resold, items being sold for €3, €2, €5, you're not going to pay €6 to transport that. So they've had to take matters into their own hand and tear up the rule book and try to create a different way of working.
And I think that in the same way that, a decade or so ago, Amazon were doing the same thing. They were tearing up the rule book, and they could do it because of the customer data they had and also the volume of parcels. And while I think Vinted aren't yet at the sort of level of Amazon in terms of parcels, having said that, in some Central East European markets, I actually think they're ahead of Amazon in terms of parcel numbers. So I think, absolutely, as you said, I think they're the next iteration of changing the rules. So if we say that Amazon and perhaps in Asia, it would have been Alibaba 10, 15 years ago, were changing the rules. Today, it's these guys. I think what's really interesting is re-commerce is the part of e-commerce that is growing fastest. So it's going to be even more relevant, even more important.
Well, I think there's a couple of comments I'd make to that. One is, knowing the journey of Amazon going through Prime, where they went from being everybody's biggest customer to end up being their own carrier. So if you're carrying a lot of stuff for Vinted, maybe just cast your mind back. If you've been in your job long enough to remember, what was it like when you were carrying, your biggest customer was Amazon in every product line, which it was at Royal Mail when I was there, to the point where now Amazon are competing to be in the top 3 carriers in the UK in their own right. Just hold that thought. And I've forgotten what the second point was.
Well, I'll tell you what, then I'll help you out, because I think that on one hand, that's true. On the other hand, even though Amazon takes a lot of the volume in-house now, the volume that's left is still vast.
Yeah, it's still considerable.
And they're rational. They will never put all their eggs in one basket. And I think that it's the same story, isn't it? The carriers that are going to adapt and offer a model that is tenable, which in the case of Vinted is out of home, have a chance to maintain still significant volumes, in my opinion. The ones that don't adapt And, there's still some pretty big carriers that haven't really got their act together on out of home. I think, they're going to have an issue. So I wouldn't say. Sorry, go on, Gary.
Yeah, we touched on this on the Japan video, where the majority of the volume that's going through the parcel locker network, the Pack City network in Japan, is re-commerce. It's C2C stuff being resold. You can't even think about getting to that kind of cost base as a carrier if you're going to try to deliver to tens of millions of homes. You need to deliver to thousands of locations and control the size of your activity. The other question, though, is sort of more esoterically is, what's driving this re-commerce thing? Is it people genuinely desire to do the right thing environmentally, not throw used clothes into landfill, or is it economics? Is it the fact that we're in a bit of a recession in many countries, a kind of spending crisis in others? If we eventually we come out of the doldrums economically and people have got money in their pockets again, will this start to impact Vinted negatively? Or is this ingrained habit of, I've worn the dress twice, a third time is social death, I'd rather sell it and get a few quid back? Is that going to be an ingrained habit?
So now everybody knows at last that Gary wears dresses. Now that's something that I didn't know.
You'll never see me in the same one 3 times.
All right. But you know what? Of course it's going to be horses for courses. My feeling is that probably the re-commerce concept, particularly in developed markets, is going to be there for keeps. And I think that's a big deal. I think there will always be a group that looks for value for money and an economy. So let's see whether it's going to grow like this or like this. I think we all agree it's going to grow.
Yeah.
And I think it's a very important segment. So let's see, maybe in 6-12 months' time where we are. But my feeling is that in the same way that Amazon, and I was part of the startup team there, so I saw how it happened in a very short space of time, was probably the biggest catalyst for change in Europe and North America in the last mile for the last, I'd say, 20 or 30 years. Watch this space. I think at least in Europe, it may well happen. What is interesting, though, because I don't know how many people know this, but Vinted is a company that started in Lithuania, which is a relatively small market, around about 2.5-3 million people. It's just vast. Young guys. Interestingly, a lot of the top team are ex-Amazon, so it explains a lot in terms of thinking. Working with another group of young guys in a company called Blockit to develop this out-of-home concept in terms of lockers. So I think, let's watch this space. Let's see what happens in 12 years' time. But my prediction is that actually it is going to continue to be a mover and shaker. Although I'm a little bit more optimistic, Gary, than you are about volumes for the carriers, because I think they're going to still need carriers.
I think it's going to vary by market, but let's wait and see what happens.
Thanks for watching this Last Mile Profits video. For more up-to-date last mile news and analysis, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on LinkedIn.